such a strange and amusing place. One day you buy him rocket ship underpants, and then the next they're in outer space. Mama, don't you know you keep the whole world turning round?
Welcome to Mommy Cast.
Thank you.
So you've got this whole discipline thing in action, but you need to come up with the consequences. What do you suggest?
Sure. There are a couple different types of consequences you can use when you get to that point. And again, consequences are for when all else fails. They're the end point of discipline. There are things called natural consequences, what just might happen, and then logical consequences, the consequences we as parents create. Mm-hmm. So those natural consequences are things like if you go out in the rain, you might get wet. Mm-hmm. If you don't wear a coat, you might be cold. If you don't do your homework, you might get a bad grade. Mm-hmm. The beauty of them is we're not the bad guy. Life is the bad guy. Life is just what's going to happen, and you're pointing it out to the child.
Right.
The downside, though, is these don't start to work until about 3.5 years old. Mm-hmm. Younger than that, and they don't care. You say to a 2-year-old, if you go out in the rain, you might get wet. They go, okay.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah,
right.
So they don't start to kick in. Mm-hmm. But the idea of them is once you've stated it, you don't want to rescue the child. They actually have to feel a bit of that consequence to learn from it.
That's so hard for a parent, though.
It really is. And you don't have to make it terrible. Mm-hmm. But let's say my 4-year-old and I are at the front door and we're arguing about her wearing a coat and it's 20 degrees outside. Mm-hmm. And I finally say, if you go out like that, you might be cold. And she says, fine. And I say, fine. Mm-hmm. Throw open the door. If the second the cold air hits her, I put the coat on, we're going to have that battle again tomorrow.
Right.
So I'm not saying be stubborn. Don't freeze the kids. Take the coats with you. But at least let them take a step or two into the yard. And they feel cold. And then you give them the coat.
Right.
And then you might review with them, what did you choose? How did it work? What might you do differently tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And let them experience a bit of that. You're much less likely to have the battle the next day because they've actually learned from it.
Okay, so you have the natural consequences, but how do you determine the other consequences?
Logical consequences are those ones we create, the if-thens. If you don't get these toys cleaned up, I'm putting them on the shelf for a few days. That's a negative consequence. There's also logical positives. If you get these cleaned up quickly, we can have extra time to play. In either case, the negative or the positive, you want the consequence related to the child's behavior. They talk about it relating in time. You want to be as immediate as possible. You don't want to miss a play date next week for being mean to your sister today. It's too far away.
Right.
That's matched in time. Intensity is the same level. If you're mean to your sister, you'll have to find nice things to say about her. If you're mean to your sister, you'll have to play in separate rooms. They're at about the same level. It's not if you're mean to your sister, you can't play together all week. That's a big consequence for a relatively small behavior.
Yeah.
Content is the last part, and it's the hardest one for a lot of parents. It's keeping it on topic. If it were being mean to the sister, you want something to do with the sister. So, if you're mean to her, you'll have to play a part. If you're mean to her, you'll have to hold hands.
I make my kids do that. You do that too, where you make them say 5 nice things about the other.
Yeah, exactly.
If my kids can't come up with 5 nice things to say about each other, I make them hug and kiss.
Sure.
On the
And
cheek,
it's related.
Which is torturous, and then they laugh. And
I make them sit on the steps.
Yeah.
They sit on the steps to the upstairs next to each other until they have said 5 nice things to each other. And then they hug and kiss.
There you go.
And it's painful.
It is.
Let me tell you, it can go on for a long time.
Yeah.
But, that's for the sibling kind of, and that's actually kind of going away in our house a little bit.
that's kind of good news.
Yeah, but the homework thing, that's the hard one because I think a lot of parents feel like they need to swoop in and rescue because they don't want the child to just go down in flames. But
this is the woman who got texted. Bring my project. I forgot it.
Yeah.
I get that. He's a little more dependent than he should be.
Yeah. And as hard as it is, it may be a time or two of saying, wow, that's your project and I'm really sorry, but. And as hard as it is that day, they're learning to do better the next time. They're learning to take that responsibility.
And you know how much it hurts?
Yeah.
I said to Kate the other day when I was busy, I was not at home, and she came home from school. I said, how was your day? She said, it was terrible. I forgot my notebook, which had every homework subject for the whole day. I got yelled at by every single teacher, and nobody was here to bring it to me. I was like, I said, look, that's not my responsibility.
Yeah.
Hopefully next time. I said, was it a hard day because of it? Yeah. Well, maybe next time you'll remember to bring it. I mean, like, I can't save you every time.
Yeah.
Right.
See, I'm the eternal rescuer.
But I want to save her. It still hurts me that I wasn't there.
Sure.
I feel like a failure as a parent that I didn't help her, but I know in the long run she'll be better off.
Yeah. And rather than rescue, you might even just talk about the things that could do to be helpful. Like, do you need a homework checklist? Do we need to put your things by the door at night? Do we need, things that they can actually have some success with, but not rescuing them.
I think one of the things that was interesting that you said is the difference between a negative consequence and a positive consequence. Because I think a lot of people make a consequence negative.
Most people do because they're frustrated in those moments. They're angry in those moments.
Sometimes it's like, if you don't do this, you're not going to be watching TV for the next year.
Right.
And then all of a sudden...
Well, yeah, you got to make consequences that are actually feasible. I drove 9 hours to go see family members, and they told their son who was having a temper tantrum that we were going to go home if he didn't act nice. I said, I got news for you guys. I'm not driving home.
Yeah. And again, you're teaching your kids not to listen. If you say things that are so big just to have an impact, everybody knows you're not going to follow through.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So if you say instead, you need to go do your homework, if you do your homework now, you'll have
more time this afternoon, or we can read together, or something related to the afternoon and that schedule, but it's a positive. If the good behavior, here's the good thing.
Yeah. Because I think some kids get really hung up on that negative. I mean, negative kind of spawns negative in a lot of ways because they start getting attention in a negative way.
And if you're at those negative consequences often, it's just frustrating as a parent.
Yeah,
you're frustrated all day, they're resentful all day, and so it's turning those around and thinking, hey, if you get these cleaned up, we can have 5 extra minutes to play.
Right.
It's still something related to the behavior rather than a reward.
Yeah, that's great information.
Sure. That's good.
For more about Dr. Rene Hackney and Parenting Playgroups, go to our website,
mommycast.com.
Mama, don't you know you keep the whole world turning round?
Hi, everybody. This is Paige and Gretchen from mommycast.com, and we're mommycast. I'm British all of a sudden. All right. Okay.